Have you ever felt as though your life is playing on repeat? Like a record stuck in the same groove. The faces may change, the scenery may shift, but the emotions, the struggles, even the conversations echo with a haunting familiarity. And perhaps you've wondered, why do I keep ending up here again? It's not because you're cursed, nor because life has singled you out for punishment. What you're experiencing is something deeper, something woven into the very mechanics of consciousness. It is what I call the observer's trap. You see, quantum physics tells us that our awareness does more than watch reality unfold. It shapes it. Each thought, each vibration, each focus of attention collapses infinite possibilities into the lived experience right in front of us. But here's the catch. When our observation gets locked into old patterns, the same worries, the same fears, the same stories we've told ourselves for years, reality doesn't just mimic the past. It rebuilds it, faithfully, like a machine set on autopilot. Think about it for a moment. Have you noticed how certain relationships seem to replay themselves? Just with different people wearing the roles. The same arguments, the same disappointments. As if you've been given a new cast, but the same old script. Or perhaps in your work, no matter how hard you push forward, the same obstacles rise up in front of you like shadows that know exactly where you're going to step. It isn't coincidence. It's the observer trap in action, and it creates a strange distortion of time. One day can feel endless, dragging under the weight of repetition, while months can vanish in the blink of an eye, without any real sense of movement. You think you've been walking forward, but in truth you've been pacing in a circle, revisiting the same ground again and again. It's no wonder that so many people feel exhausted, not from the distance they've traveled, but from walking the same path too many times. Now, I want you to pause and really feel into this. The trap isn't maintained by life itself. It's maintained by the quality of our attention. Every morning, when we open our eyes, our consciousness goes searching like a homing signal. It seeks out the familiar, the same worries, the same patterns, the same emotional frequency it knows best. It's like a river flowing in a carved channel. Even if that channel leads to nowhere, the water doesn't question it, just follows the groove it has known for so long. But the beautiful truth is this: the moment you recognize the trap, the walls begin to dissolve. Awareness is the solvent, the simple act of seeing, I've been here before. I've lived this exact loop, starts to loosen its grip, and what once felt like a prison begins to feel like a doorway. I often think of the butterfly from the outside. Its time in the cocoon looks like confinement, even suffering. But within that tight chamber, a miracle is happening. The caterpillar isn't being punished. It is being rewritten. Every cell is reorganizing, preparing for wings. And so too with us. The repetitive cycles, the frustrations, the déjà vu of our lives, they are not proof that we are broken. They are the chrysalis stage of consciousness itself. And yet, many people try to escape this stage through force. They think, if I can just think harder, if I can just push more, if I can just manifest stronger, then I'll break free. But freedom isn't about effort. You cannot muscle your way out of a quantum trap. You cannot break a cycle by staring at it harder. That's like trying to escape a labyrinth by tracing the same path over and over on a map. The key is not in the mind's force, but in the shift of perception, in the quality of how you observe. Imagine you are standing at the edge of an ocean. Most people scoop the water with their hands, desperate to hold it, control it, contain it. But water slips away from grasping fingers. It is only when you allow your hand to rest, open and relaxed, that the water pools gently in your palm. Reality works the same way. The more you strain, the more it escapes. The more you soften into awareness, the more it flows toward you, revealing depths you never noticed before. And here's something that may surprise you. Every moment of your so-called failure, every repetition that has worn you down, has been part of the preparation. Just as the caterpillar needs the cocoon, you have needed these loops. Not as punishment, but as training. Life has been showing you exactly where your attention clings, exactly what frequencies you keep choosing without realizing it. Every disappointment was a mirror, reflecting the places where your awareness got caught. When you begin to see this, life stops being a meaningless repetition and starts becoming a classroom. The frustration of the loop turns into the invitation of liberation. You realize that you have not been walking in circles by mistake. You have been tracing the same patterns until you could finally see them clearly enough to step out of them. So what does stepping out look like? It looks like coherence. Coherence is when your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, your very being line up into one rhythm, not scattered, not fragmented, not pulled in different directions. In coherence, you stop collapsing the same old probability waves. You stop recreating the same old stories. You become like sunlight instead of a laser present everywhere, illuminating gently, not straining, not forcing. And in that state, reality cannot help but shift. Because the truth is, you were never trapped by the world outside you. The prison was built by the way you observed. And the key has always been in your hands to observe differently, to soften into presence, to allow a new frequency to emerge. And maybe right now, as you listen, something inside you is stirring a quiet recognition that this is not just theory, but something you felt deep in your bones. If so, take that as a sign. The loop is weakening, the cocoon is splitting, and a new chapter of your consciousness is waiting to spread its wings. 1. The observer trap and the spiral of reinforcement. There is a kind of quiet exhaustion that comes when every morning feels the same. Even if the details on the surface change, you wake up, you put your feet on the ground, and before you even realize it, your mind has already gone searching. It scans for what is familiar, the same worries about bills, the same concerns about your body, the same memory of yesterday's conflict, the same anticipation of tomorrow's stress. It doesn't ask your permission. It simply gravitates back to what it knows. And in that automatic return, a cycle begins again. I used to think this was just life, that repetition was the evidence of reality being heavy and unchangeable. But I have come to see it differently. Consciousness is not a passive witness. It is more like a compass needle, one that locks onto a direction and points us there again and again. The problem is, when the compass gets stuck, when it cannot move freely, it doesn't matter how many roads you walk down, you'll keep finding yourself back in the same place. This is what I mean by the observer trap. It is the way our awareness, by continuously looking at the same patterns, strengthens them, like a groove worn into a record. The more the needle passes over it, the deeper it gets, and the deeper it gets, the harder it is to imagine another song playing. Think of how rain falls on a hillside. The first trickle of water creates a faint line in the soil. The next rainfall follows that same line, carving it deeper. Over time, what began as a simple trickle becomes a stream, then a channel, then a river. The water doesn't stop to wonder if it could flow another way. It simply follows the path already carved. Our attention works the same way. The more we notice something, a fear, a disappointment, a sense of lack, the more it carves itself into the fabric of our reality. Soon, it feels less like something we are creating, and more like something that has trapped us. And here is where the spiral of reinforcement begins. Each time we notice the same struggle, we confirm to ourselves, this is my life. This is who I am. This is what I can expect. That confirmation strengthens the pattern, and when tomorrow arrives, our awareness is already tuned to find it again. Not because we want it, but because it is familiar. And what is familiar often feels safer than what is unknown. Even if the familiar is painful, I remember a season of my life where every relationship seemed to end the same way. Different faces, different names, but the same outcome, the same ache in my chest. I told myself stories to explain it. Maybe I'm not lovable. Maybe this is just my destiny. But the truth was simpler and more profound. I had become so used to observing rejection that I unconsciously recreated the conditions for it. My compass needle was stuck, and every road I walked seemed to lead me back to the same place. The spiral is not cruel. It is not a punishment. It is simply the mechanics of consciousness. What we observe with persistence becomes dense, solid, immovable in our experience. It becomes the truth we live by. But the actual truth is that the spiral is fed by us. It has no power on its own. Without our daily observation, without our quiet agreement, it cannot survive. And so the way out is not through force, but through recognition. The moment you see the trap, really see it, something inside you loosens. It's like catching yourself in the middle of a thought you've thought 1,000 times, and realizing, oh, there it is again. That recognition is the first step in breaking the spiral, because it interrupts the automatic agreement you've been giving it all along. It is humbling, but also freeing, to realize how much of our suffering comes not from the world outside, but from the loops of our own observation. We are like gardeners who water the same weed every morning, without noticing, and then we wonder why it grows taller, while the flowers around it wither. To shift, we do not need to fight the weed. We simply need to stop watering it, to redirect our care towards something else. This is not easy. The old paths are seductive in their familiarity. The mind whispers, "At least you know this pain. At least you can predict it." But if you can sit still long enough, if you can breathe and watch without rushing to fix or resist, you begin to sense that another pathway is possible. That the compass needle, though stiff, can be nudged. That water, though entrenched in its channel, can overflow into new directions when the right moment comes. The observer trap feeds on unconsciousness. The spiral of reinforcement only spins when we are not aware of it. The medicine, then, is awareness itself. Gentle, patient, steady awareness. The kind that doesn't condemn you for falling into the loop again, but simply notices, here is the familiar groove. In that noticing, you are no longer completely inside it. You are standing at the edge, watching, and in that shift of position, space opens up. Over time, that space becomes a doorway. What once felt like a prison begins to feel like a lesson. You start to understand that the spiral has been showing you something important all along, where your attention clings, where your fears nest, where your story refuses to loosen. It has not been holding you captive out of malice, but guiding you toward the moment of release. So if you feel weary of repetition, if you feel as though your life is circling without progress, take heart. The spiral can be broken, not by fighting harder, but by seeing more clearly, by remembering that you are not the pattern itself, you are the awareness of it. And awareness, once awake, cannot be trapped forever. 2. Distorted time. There are seasons in life when an hour feels like a lifetime, yet entire months vanish without leaving a trace. You sit in a meeting, or stand in line at the grocery store, and the clock seems frozen, each second dragging its feet. But then you look back over the past year, and it feels as though it slipped through your fingers in an instant, leaving you wondering, where did all that time go? This strange paradox isn't just about poor memory or getting older. It is the signature of consciousness caught in repetition, a mind looping through the same probability patterns, mistaking motion for progress. I remember a time when I was working tirelessly, filling every day with tasks. On paper, I was busy. My calendar was full. My lists were long. My body was exhausted. But inside, there was an emptiness. Weeks bled into each other. Achievements didn't feel like achievements. They felt like placeholders, keeping me distracted, while nothing truly changed. When I looked back, I could hardly distinguish one season from the next. It was as though my life had been reduced to a blur. That blur is the mark of distorted time. Think of a hamster wheel. To the hamster, there is the sensation of running, of effort, of motion. Muscles are burning. Breath is quickened. The body is working. But step back, and you see the truth. The hamster hasn't gone anywhere. It has burned energy without changing location. Many of us live like that, trapped in our own hamster wheels of thought and behavior. We wake up, carry out our routines, battle the same problems, tell ourselves the same stories, and collapse into bed, believing we have moved forward. But the forward we imagine is an illusion. We've been circling the same spot. This is why time feels so strange when you are caught in the observer trap. Routine hours feel endless, because there is no freshness in them. They are hollow replicas of yesterday. So your mind registers them as heavy and slow, but whole months disappear, because nothing truly new has been created in your awareness. The brain only marks what is different, what is alive with novelty. If every day is essentially the same, there is nothing to record. And so memory compresses the days into a blur. That is why people so often say, "Where did the time go?" It went into the recycling bin of repeated experience. When you see this clearly, it can be unsettling. We don't like to admit how much of our lives has been lost to repetition. But this realization is also a doorway, because the moment you recognize that you are living in a loop, you are no longer fully inside it. You begin to notice the walls of the maze, and in noticing them, you create the possibility of stepping out. I once spoke with a man who told me he had been at the same job for 30 years. He said, "It feels like it's gone by in the blink of an eye." But as we talked more, it became clear that it wasn't 30 years of varied experience. It was more like 1 year, lived 30 times. The tasks never changed. The challenges were predictable. The conversations recycled. No wonder time had collapsed into nothing. His life had not been measured in years, but in loops. And yet, within that recognition, something softened in him. He realized he was not too old, not too late, not beyond change. He simply saw that his awareness had been asleep, tracing the same grooves. And once he saw it, he could not unsee it. He began to shift in small ways, taking new routes home, saying yes to conversations he once avoided, trying activities he had told himself he was too old for. And as he did, time began to feel different. Days regained texture. Memories returned with color. That is the gift of breaking free from distorted time. Life becomes alive again. This is why mystics and sages speak about presence as the key. When you are present, even ordinary moments expand with richness. 10 minutes of true presence with a loved one can feel deeper than 10 years of habitual conversation. A walk around the block, fully awake to the sky and the trees, can be etched in memory more clearly than a whole month of living on autopilot. Presence doesn't just make time feel different, it transforms time itself. And so, distorted time isn't a life sentence. It is simply a signal, a reminder that you have been circling the same patterns. It is like a gentle tap on the shoulder from the universe, saying, "Wake up, look around. You're not actually moving." The question is whether you will listen or whether you will continue running in place. If you have ever felt that hollow ache, that sense of days slipping through your hands without meaning, I want you to know this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply caught in a loop that your awareness can dissolve. The trap feeds on unconsciousness, but it cannot survive the light of recognition. And here is the deeper truth: you were never meant to live as a blur. Life was never designed to be something you endure, waiting for weekends or retirements. Life was meant to be vivid, textured, filled with moments that feel like eternity because you are fully in them. When you shift from repetition to presence, you step out of distorted time and into what many call the eternal now. And in that space, even the simplest moments become sacred. So if today feels long and empty, if this past year feels like a blur, let that awareness awaken you. You are not here to run in circles. You are here to live, to create, to taste the freshness of each moment. And that begins, not with trying harder, but with observing differently. 3. The power of synchronicity. There are moments in life when something arrives at just the right time, and deep down, you know it is not an accident. Perhaps it is a book that seems to leap off the shelf into your hands, as though it had been waiting for you all along, or a conversation with a stranger who says exactly what your heart needed to hear, though you had no words to ask, or even a simple message on a screen that appears when you were about to give up, whispering, "Keep going." These moments have a quality that logic alone cannot explain. They feel alive. They feel intentional. This is the power of synchronicity. For years, I dismissed such experiences as coincidence. I told myself it was just random chance, that I was simply noticing what had always been there. But over time, the pattern became too clear, too precise. The right people appeared at the right moments. Opportunities lined up in ways that no amount of planning could have arranged. Even the challenges seemed to arrive with uncanny timing, as though designed to reveal exactly what I needed to grow. I came to understand that synchronicity is not luck. It is the language of a deeper intelligence, the signature of consciousness aligning with new frequencies. When you are caught in the observer trap, the world feels closed and repetitive. The same situations cycle back, and nothing truly surprises you. But as soon as your awareness begins to loosen from those old grooves, synchronicity emerges. It is the universe's way of saying, you are stepping out of the loop. You are entering a new field of possibilities. It is a signpost on the road, guiding you into territory your mind could never chart on its own. Think of it like tuning a radio. When your frequency is static, all you hear is noise. It doesn't matter how closely you listen. The channel never clears. But as you turn the dial, there comes a moment when the noise dissolves into a melody, crisp and unmistakable. Synchronicity is that melody. It is what happens when your consciousness shifts into alignment with a new station, a new song. Suddenly, what once seemed impossible becomes natural. What once seemed invisible is standing right in front of you. One of the most profound aspects of synchronicity is the way it often bypasses the mind's control. You can't force it, and you can't schedule it. It happens in the quiet spaces, in the moments when you are open rather than striving. You may have been searching for years without success, only to stumble upon the answer when you finally let go. That letting go is the doorway. It is when you release the grip of needing to know, needing to control, that the universe finally has room to place the right people, the right messages, the right opportunities in your path. I remember once walking through a particularly heavy season of my life. I felt lost, uncertain, tired of repeating the same mistakes. One evening, while wandering in a bookstore with no intention to buy, a single title caught my eye. The book was small, tucked away, almost hidden. But something in me knew, this is for you. And when I opened it, the first page spoke directly to my situation, as though the author had written those words across time and space, just for me. That moment was not just helpful, it was sacred. It marked the beginning of a shift in me, a reminder that I was not alone, that life itself was conspiring with me, not against me. When you begin to honor synchronicity, you also begin to see how deeply connected everything truly is. That stranger who smiled at you was not random. That phone call you received at just the right moment was not accidental. That chance meeting that turned into a lifelong friendship was not luck. These are threads in a tapestry that your conscious mind cannot fully see. Synchronicity reveals the hidden pattern, that you are part of something far greater than yourself, and that this greater field responds to your state of being. It is important to understand that synchronicity does not always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it arrives as a challenge, a disruption, an ending that forces you to wake up. The timing of these events can be so precise that you realize, even through the pain, they were necessary. A closed door is also synchronicity. A sudden ending is also alignment. The universe does not only speak in gifts, it also speaks in endings that clear space for new beginnings. And so, when synchronicity shows up, the invitation is not just to be amazed, but to listen. What is this moment pointing me toward? What frequency is opening for me now? If you can meet synchronicity with openness, without clinging or overanalyzing, it becomes a compass, guiding you into your truest path. The beauty is that synchronicity multiplies the more you notice it. At first, it might be rare, a surprising conversation, a meaningful coincidence. But as your awareness sharpens, as your frequency stabilizes, synchronicities begin to cluster. Days start to feel magical. The smallest details shimmer with meaning. Life begins to feel less like a series of accidents and more like a symphony in which you are both the listener and the musician. And perhaps most healing of all, synchronicity reassures us that we are not alone. In a world that often feels fragmented and isolating, synchronicity is the thread of connection that whispers, "You belong. You are guided. You are part of a living field that knows your name." That reminder has carried me through many dark nights, when I could not see the way forward, but could still trust the timing of the signs that appeared. So, if you have noticed these subtle alignments, the right word at the right moment, the perfect timing of events, the sense that life itself is nudging you pay attention, this is not random. This is evidence that your consciousness is breaking free from old loops and tuning into a higher station. Synchronicity is not the destination, it is the doorway. And once you learn to walk through it, you realize that reality itself has been waiting to meet you in ways you could never have imagined. 4. The urgent quantum window. There are seasons in history when the air feels charged, when something larger than our individual lives seems to be stirring beneath the surface. Perhaps you have sensed it too, a quiet urgency in your chest, a restlessness in your sleep, a whisper that says, "Pay attention. Something is shifting." This is not your imagination. It is the pulse of what I call a quantum window, a rare opening in time when the collective field of humanity trembles on the edge of transformation. For thousands of years, human consciousness has been cycling through the same patterns: conflict and reconciliation, scarcity and struggle, forgetting and remembering. These cycles have been so consistent that many believe they are permanent, that this is simply the way things are. But if you look closer, if you listen with your whole being, you will notice that the rhythm is changing. The loops are cracking, the old grooves are loosening. The collective observer trap, which has kept entire civilizations locked into repeating histories, is beginning to destabilize. This is the window we find ourselves in now. It is not a window we created by effort, nor one that will remain open forever. It is like a tide that has come in, carrying us closer to new shores. But tides do not wait. They rise, they peak, and they recede. To resist them is to be pulled under. To ride them is to be carried into possibilities that once seemed impossible. I have seen this play out not just in my own life, but in the world around me. Have you noticed how quickly events unfold now? How change that once took decades now happens in months, even weeks. How conversations once confined to quiet corners are suddenly spoken on the world stage. This acceleration is not random chaos. It is the signature of a collective frequency rising, the swell of a quantum wave that demands our participation. And here is the truth. Participation is not optional. We are each being asked to choose, to either align with the rising tide of awareness or cling to the sinking weight of the old patterns. There is no neutral ground anymore. The middle space, where one could quietly avoid change, is dissolving. This is why life feels more intense, why the stakes seem higher. The wave is here. You will either ride it or resist it. Riding it does not mean becoming perfect, enlightened, or flawless. It means becoming willing to release the loops that have defined you, willing to let the familiar crumble if it no longer serves, willing to allow the discomfort of change, knowing that on the other side is freedom. Those who cling to the old ways will not be punished, but they will feel as though they are drowning, because the very structures that once supported them are collapsing. I remember standing in the ocean as a child, when a wave larger than me rolled in. My instinct was to fight it, to brace against its force. But the harder I resisted, the more it knocked me down, tumbling me beneath the water. Later, I learned another way. I learned to dive into the wave, to flow with its motion. In surrender, I discovered power. The same is true now. If you brace yourself against the tide of consciousness, you will feel overwhelmed. But if you soften into it, if you trust the motion, it will lift you higher than you imagined. This window of transformation is not only for a few, it is for all of us. But it requires honesty. Where in your life are you still circling? What patterns have you carried for years that no longer serve you? This is the moment to see them clearly. Not with judgment, but with recognition, because recognition itself is liberation. Every loop you see for what it is begins to dissolve. Every story you stop believing loses its grip. This is the work of this season, to look with courage and to allow with gentleness. It is also important to remember that urgency does not mean panic. The quantum window is not here to frighten us, but to awaken us. Imagine a train pulling into the station. You can hear the whistle, feel the ground trembling. The doors open, but they will not stay open forever. You do not need to run, but you do need to decide. Will you step on board, or will you let it pass? That is the choice before us now. For some, the choice will be made in dramatic moments. A sudden loss, a surprising opportunity, a crossroads where life demands a leap. For others, it will come in quiet whispers, a book that won't let go of your heart, a conversation that lingers in your mind, a subtle nudge that says, change direction. However it comes, know that it is the same invitation to leave behind the loops of yesterday and step into the possibility of something new. And here is the promise hidden within the urgency. If you dare to align with this rising tide, life will meet you with synchronicity, support, and renewal. Doors will open where walls once stood. Companions will appear on the path. Resources will flow where scarcity once ruled. This is not magical thinking. It is the natural response of a universe that reorganizes itself around coherence. When you choose to step out of the trap, reality itself rearranges to meet you. So if your nights feel restless, if your days feel charged with an invisible pressure, take heart. You are not failing. You are not falling behind. You are simply standing in the threshold of the quantum window, feeling its power press against your chest. Do not resist it. Do not numb yourself to it. This is the moment you were born to meet. The wave is rising. The window is open. The question is not whether change will happen. It is already happening. The question is whether you will let it carry you, or whether you will cling to the old shore and call it safety. But remember this, safety in a collapsing loop is not safety at all. It is the slow suffocation of a soul meant to fly. This is the invitation of our time to release, to trust, to ride. And as you do, you will not only free yourself, you will help lift the entire tide of humanity into a higher ocean of being. 5. The key: the quality of observation. We spend much of our lives believing that the way out of our struggles is to think harder, push stronger, or fight longer. We imagine that if we just apply more effort, if we just strain our minds a little further, Somehow the walls will crack, and freedom will appear. But I have lived long enough to tell you the trap of repetition is not broken by force. It is not conquered by intensity. It is dissolved by the quality of how you observe. Let me explain. Observation is not passive. The way you look at life, the energy behind your gaze, the texture of your attention, all of it shapes what unfolds before you. You may not notice it, but every time you dwell on fear, your attention tightens, narrows, and bends reality into a small circle. Every time you observe from agitation or impatience, the field responds by feeding you more of the same. It is not punishment, it is resonance. Consciousness mirrors itself. But there is another way of seeing. When you soften into stillness, when you allow your awareness to rest without grasping or judging, something miraculous happens. The loop weakens. Old patterns lose their grip. You stop being the actor who endlessly repeats the same script, and you become the writer, Hunt, with the courage to begin a new chapter. I remember a night years ago when I sat in silence, exhausted from chasing solutions. My mind had been spinning for weeks, trying to figure out how to fix my life. Every plan I made collapsed. Every effort left me more tired. In the quiet of that evening, I simply gave up, not in despair, but in surrender. I stopped analyzing. I stopped demanding. I just sat, breathing, watching, and in that stillness, a shift occurred. My problems didn't vanish, but the way I saw them changed. They were no longer heavy chains around my neck. They were teachers, pointing me toward places in myself I had ignored. That change in observation was the beginning of freedom. The truth is, our minds are conditioned to believe that more is always better. More thought, more effort, more control. But the real key is less. Less grasping, less forcing, less insisting that life must look a certain way. When you reduce the noise, you discover the quiet power of pure awareness. It is like clearing the fog from a window. Suddenly the world looks different. Not because the world has changed, but because your perception has. Think of how the sun rises each morning. The sun does not force the light into the sky. It simply shines, and the darkness dissolves on its own. Observation works the same way. When your awareness carries the warmth of calm presence, reality begins to shift without struggle. Shadows retreat. Not because you fought them, but because you saw them clearly and refused to feed them with fear. The quality of observation is not about ignoring pain or pretending that problems don't exist. It is about meeting them with a different energy. Imagine two people standing before the same storm. One stares at it with panic, feeding it with dread, making it loom larger and more terrifying. The other observes it with steadiness, acknowledging its force, but also recognizing its passing nature. The storm is the same, but the experience is entirely different. Which observer are you in my own journey? I have noticed that the more I insist on controlling life, the more it resists, but when I shift into gentle observation, life responds with grace. It's as though reality is waiting for me to stop pushing so it can finally breathe with me. This is why ancient teachings speak so often of presence. Presence is not a mystical state reserved for sages. It is the natural result of observing without clinging. It is when your awareness no longer demands that reality confirm your fears or fulfill your fantasies, but simply allows what is to be seen as it is. And here is the paradox. When you stop trying to force change, change happens. When you stop clinging to outcomes, outcomes unfold with more ease than you could have planned. It is as though life has been waiting for you to step aside, so it can flow in ways your mind could never orchestrate. This is what it means to change the quality of observation. It is not about what you look at, but how you look. You can stare at the same challenge with frustration and remain stuck. Or you can look at it with calm presence and suddenly notice an opening you never saw before. The situation may appear the same, but your observation creates a different pathway. One of the simplest practices I share with people is this: the next time you feel caught in repetition, pause. Take a breath. Instead of asking, "How do I fix this?" ask, "How am I observing this?" That single question changes everything. It shifts the focus from forcing a solution to allowing a new perception, and in that new perception, doors begin to appear where walls once stood. We all carry the power of choice in our awareness. We can observe through fear, and reality will echo fear. We can observe through anger, and life will reinforce anger. Or we can observe through stillness, compassion, and trust, and the world around us will reflect those qualities back. It is not magic. It is the natural law of resonance. So, if you are weary of repeating the same stories, if you are tired of running in circles, know this: you do not need to think harder. You do not need to strive more. You only need to shift the quality of your gaze. Become still. Become present. Let your awareness carry the quiet strength of acceptance. In that space, the loop cannot hold you. The spiral of repetition unravels, and a new chapter begins to write itself through you. You are not bound to the old script. You are the author, who has always had the pen. The key has never been in forcing the story to change, but in changing the eyes with which you read it. And once you do, life responds. Reality reshapes itself around your new quality of observation, and the world begins to mirror the freedom you carry within. 6. The butterfly in the cocoon. From the outside, a cocoon looks like confinement. It looks small, dark, even suffocating. If you've ever held one in your hand, you might feel a strange sympathy for the creature inside. You imagine it cramped, limited, cut off from the world. It's easy to see it as a prison, but inside that fragile shell, something extraordinary is happening. The caterpillar is dissolving, its very body breaking down, its old form giving way to something new. Every cell is reorganizing, preparing for wings. What seems like death is really a transformation. Life often gives us our own cocoons. They don't look like shimmering silk. They look like heartbreak, illness, loss, failure, or those long stretches of life where everything feels stuck. From the outside, to others, you may look trapped. You may even feel trapped yourself. But just as with the butterfly, those seasons are not designed to destroy you. They are preparing you for a greater unfolding. I can tell you from my own path. Some of the darkest times of my life were cocoons in disguise. I thought I was being broken. I thought life was shrinking me, stripping me of everything familiar. But what was really happening was reorganization. My old ways of being, the patterns, the beliefs, the identities I clung to had to dissolve so that something freer could emerge. It did not happen overnight. Transformation rarely does. But with time, I came to see that the cocoon was never my enemy. It was my midwife, ushering me into a new form of myself. The difficulty is that from the inside, the cocoon doesn't feel hopeful. It feels like ending. Imagine being the caterpillar, everything you once knew crawling on the ground, eating leaves, inching through life dissolves. Your very body liquefies. There is no guarantee, no proof of what comes next. From that perspective, the cocoon feels like annihilation. And yet, it is only through that dismantling that the butterfly can be born. The same is true for us. When life strips away our certainties, when we feel lost, we often think we are failing. But what if those seasons are not endings, but beginnings in disguise? What if the breaking down of your old life is the only way for a new life to emerge? When you see it this way, suffering takes on a new meaning. It is not punishment, it is preparation. I remember meeting a woman who had gone through a painful divorce. She told me that in the beginning, she felt destroyed. Everything she had built her identity around collapsed. She said it was like living inside a shell she didn't ask for, cut off from the life she thought she knew. But as time passed, she began to notice something. The pain forced her to look deeper. It stripped away roles she had outgrown, beliefs that kept her small, and habits that drained her spirit. Years later, she told me, that season was the cocoon that gave me wings. Without it, I would never have discovered the strength, the freedom, and the love I now carry. The cocoon reminds us that darkness does not always mean defeat. Sometimes it means recreation. Sometimes it means the most essential parts of you are being rewritten so that you can rise into a form you never imagined possible. But here is the challenge: you cannot rush the process. A butterfly forced out of its cocoon too soon will never fly. Its wings will not be strong enough. The struggle to emerge is what strengthens them. In the same way, we cannot always escape our hardships when we want to. We cannot cut short the nights of grief or the seasons of waiting. They are strengthening us. They are shaping us. They are giving us the wings we will need for the life ahead. This is why patience is so vital in transformation. Not passive resignation, but patient trust. The understanding that what feels like delay is often divine timing. The knowing that what feels like collapse is really reconstruction. When you can rest into that, even the hardest seasons carry a quiet hope. You realize, I am not being punished. I am being prepared. And when the cocoon opens, when the first cracks of light appear, something inside you knows you are ready. The world will see your wings and call it miraculous, but you will know the truth. The miracle happened in the hidden place. The miracle was in the dark, in the breaking down, in the quiet reorganization no one else could see. So if you find yourself in a cocoon now, if your life feels small, confined, stripped bare, do not despair. Trust the process. Trust that within you, something greater is being woven. Wings are forming, even if you cannot feel them yet. And when the time is right, you will not crawl out. You will fly. The cocoon is not a prison. It is a passage, and the passage is necessary because wings are never born on the ground. They are born in the hidden chambers of transformation, in the silence, in the darkness, in the place where the old dissolves so that the new can emerge. 7. Signs in daily life. When transformation begins to stir within you, it rarely announces itself with trumpets or fireworks. Instead, it shows up quietly, woven into the fabric of your daily life. At first, you may think you are imagining it, dismissing it as coincidence. But the deeper you pay attention, the more you realize these small shifts are not accidents. They are signals, reflections of the subtle but profound changes happening in your energy. One of the first places this shows up is in your dreams. Perhaps you've noticed your nights feel different. The dreams that once slipped away like smoke now return with color and weight. They linger in your memory long after waking, carrying images and messages that feel significant, even if you can't always explain them. Sometimes these dreams are vivid journeys, like walking through another life. Other times they are simple moments, a voice, a gesture, a symbol that echo with meaning far greater than the scene itself. These are not random. They are transmissions from the deeper layers of your consciousness. Reminders that your awareness is expanding beyond the narrow band of repetition. I went through a period where my dreams became so clear that I would wake with the feeling that I had lived another day in another world. At first, it unsettled me. I wondered if I was losing touch with reality. But over time, I came to see these dreams as guides. They were showing me truths I had overlooked in waking life. They were teaching me to trust my inner knowing. And they were reminding me that consciousness is far larger than the small box I had kept it in. Another sign often appears in your relationship with technology. Have you ever thought of someone and then, seconds later, their message appears on your phone? Or noticed that a song you needed to hear played exactly at the right moment? Or that your devices seem strangely sensitive to your mood, working smoothly when you are calm, malfunctioning when you are in turmoil? These experiences can feel eerie, but they are not supernatural tricks. They are reflections of resonance. As your energy becomes more coherent, The world around you begins to mirror it. Even through machines, technology is not separate from the field of consciousness. It is part of it. And when your frequency shifts, it responds. I once smiled when a friend told me that every time she was about to step into an important decision, her computer would freeze. At first, she cursed it, but then she noticed a pattern. Those pauses always gave her just enough time to reconsider, to breathe, to make a wiser choice. She began to see the glitch not as an inconvenience, but as a nudge from the field itself. The more she honored it, the more she trusted that reality was speaking to her in ways she had never considered before. Animals, too, carry messages when your energy shifts. A bird that lingers longer than usual on your window. A dog that seems drawn to you in the park. A cat that stares at you with a gaze that feels deeper than chance. These encounters are not random. Animals are exquisitely sensitive to vibration. They sense coherence. They sense openness. And they respond. I remember walking through a season of deep inner work when birds began landing unusually close to me. Unafraid. Their presence felt like a blessing, a reassurance that my energy was becoming gentler, more inviting, more in harmony with life itself. These small signs matter. They are not to be dismissed as curiosities. They are reflections of your changing frequency. They are reality's way of showing you that the shift is real, that what is happening inside is already visible outside. And the more you notice them, the stronger they become. Awareness is like sunlight. Whatever you shine it on grows brighter. But I want to be clear, these signs are not the goal. They are the mirrors. If you chase them, they will slip through your fingers. If you make them into trophies, they lose their meaning. Their purpose is simple: to remind you that transformation is underway, that the old loops are loosening, and that you are not imagining the change. They encourage you to keep walking, to keep trusting, even when the deeper process feels invisible. I know how easy it is to doubt. When your inner life begins to shift, you may question whether it's real. You may think, maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe this is just wishful thinking. But the signs in daily life come to reassure you. They whisper, no, this is happening. You are not the same as you were yesterday. Life sees you. Life responds to you. So pay attention to your dreams. Notice how your devices and songs seem to line up with your thoughts. Watch the way animals respond to your presence. These are not distractions. They are confirmations. They are the everyday poetry of a universe that is far more intimate than we've been taught to believe. And as you honor these signs, gratitude will naturally rise in you. Gratitude, not as a forced practice, but as a natural response. You will find yourself smiling at small coincidences, feeling awe at simple encounters, recognizing that life itself is a conversation, one that is speaking directly to you. And in that recognition, the trap of repetition loses its hold, because you are no longer blind to the living dialogue all around you. So the next time you see a sign in a dream, in a machine, in the eyes of an animal, pause, receive it. Let it remind you that you are changing, that your energy is different, that your reality is reflecting back the coherence you are beginning to embody. These signs are not the end of the journey, but they are the footprints that tell you the path is real. And as you follow them, step by step, you will find yourself walking into a life that feels alive, responsive, and beautifully aligned. 8. Coherence, the supreme secret. There is a truth I wish I had learned sooner in life, one that would have spared me years of struggling, pushing, and trying to force the world into shape. The truth is, this reality does not respond to how hard you think or how much you effort. It responds to coherence, the harmony of your whole being moving as one. Most of us live scattered. Our thoughts pull in one direction, our emotions in another, our actions somewhere else entirely. We say we want peace, but inside we carry fear. We pray for abundance, but underneath we believe in lack. We speak of love, but still hold resentment in our chest. This scattering of energy is not a moral failure. It is simply the condition of human life in the trap of repetition. But it explains why so many of us feel stuck. When your being is fragmented, reality receives a mixed signal, and a mixed signal cannot call forth clarity. Coherence is different. Coherence happens when thought, feeling, body, and spirit are no longer at war with each other, but aligned. It is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is the way a tuning fork hums when every part of it vibrates in resonance. That clear tone fills the room without strain, without effort. In the same way, when your inner world hums in alignment, the quantum field, that unseen ocean of possibilities, cannot help but respond. I once believed that creating change meant wrestling life into submission. I worked hard. I visualized harder. I repeated affirmations until my voice grew hoarse. And still, life resisted. It was only when I softened that I began to understand. In a moment of exhaustion, I stopped forcing. I sat quietly, letting my breath steady, letting my heart unclench. And in that stillness, something shifted. It was as if all the scattered parts of me began to gather together. My thoughts, my feelings, my energy for once. They were not running in different directions. They were simply here, and in that coherence, doors opened effortlessly. Opportunities appeared without me chasing them. Relationships healed without endless effort. The difference was not what I did, but the state I did it from. The universe is not persuaded by force. It is moved by harmony. When you are coherent, you no longer need to reach out and drag things toward you. You become the space where they naturally arrive, like a field of wildflowers attracting bees without effort. Coherence draws what belongs to you, not because you demanded it, but because you became the natural environment for it to exist. Consider the way music works. A single note played out of tune can disturb an entire orchestra, but when every instrument aligns, the sound is breathtaking, larger than the sum of its parts. That is coherence. And in that same way, when your mind, heart, and spirit are aligned, your life begins to carry a tone that reality cannot ignore. What I find beautiful is that coherence does not require doing more. It asks us to do less fragmenting, less pretending, less fighting against ourselves. It asks us to gather our attention back from the past and the future, to stop scattering it across worries and regrets, and to let it rest here, in this moment, because here, when all of you is present, you are whole, and wholeness is coherence. And when coherence arises, something sacred unfolds. You begin to realize that you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to prove. You no longer need to struggle to attract. Instead, you see that you are the attraction. You are the field in which all possibilities live. The love you've been searching for. The peace you've been chasing. The abundance you've been craving, they are not outside of you, waiting to be pulled in. They are resonances that emerge when your inner being vibrates as one. I remember speaking with an old friend who had spent decades chasing success. He was worn down, disappointed, convinced that life had betrayed him. But in his later years, he began to practice something simple: daily stillness, gentle self-acceptance, gratitude for what was already present. Slowly, he noticed the tension in his body ease, the noise in his mind quiet. His children began to call more. Strangers extended kindness. Even opportunities, small at first, began to line up without him pursuing them. He told me, I stopped forcing, and somehow, life started working with me instead of against me. That is coherence. Coherence is not flashy. It does not shout. It is quiet, like a deep river flowing steadily, but its effects are undeniable. It organizes reality around you. It brings clarity where there was confusion, ease where there was struggle, flow where there was stagnation. And once you taste it, you realize it was never about controlling life. It was always about aligning yourself. So if you are weary of striving, if you are tired of pushing and pulling at the world, let this truth sink into you. Coherence is the supreme secret. When all of you hums together in harmony, the universe does not resist. It joins the song. You do not have to make anything happen. You become the space where it is already happening. And perhaps most comforting of all, coherence is not something you must create from nothing. It is not foreign to you. It has always been your natural state. Beneath the noise, beneath the fragmentation, you are already whole. The practice is not about building coherence, but about remembering it, about releasing the distractions, the old patterns, the fearful loops, until what is left is the simple, steady rhythm of your true self. In that space, you stop being a seeker. You become the sought. You stop being the one who chases. You become the one who receives. You stop being the one who fights. You become the one who flows. That is the power of coherence. That is the secret the universe has been waiting for you to remember. 9. Natural restoration. When coherence begins to settle into your being, it does not stay hidden in your thoughts or emotions. It makes its way into your body. Slowly, gently, but unmistakably, you start to notice that the patterns of stress that once lived in your cells begin to shift. Illnesses that lingered like unwelcome guests start to release their hold. Pain that seemed woven into the fabric of your daily life begins to soften. And what is most extraordinary is that this change does not come from a miracle cure or a secret ritual. It comes from something far simpler: the way your consciousness informs your body. We forget how intimately our cells listen to us. Every thought is a signal, every emotion, a chemical message, every belief, a frequency carried through the bloodstream. When we live in fear, our cells adapt to fear. They tighten, they prepare for battle, they conserve energy as though danger is always near. When we live in anger or grief, our body shapes itself around those feelings, carrying them like burdens in the muscles, in the stomach, in the heart. Over time, these signals accumulate and illness takes root, not because our body is against us, but because it has been faithfully obeying the messages of our awareness. But when coherence forms, when thought, feeling, and energy align into harmony, the signals change. The body no longer receives conflicting instructions. It no longer has to brace itself against chaos. Instead, it receives a steady rhythm of peace, trust, and alignment. And in that environment, the body does what it was always designed to do. It restores itself. I once met a man who had carried a chronic illness for many years. He had tried everything: medications, diets, treatments, and nothing seemed to truly help. He told me that what finally began to change his condition was not a new drug, but a shift in how he lived each day. He began practicing coherence, breathing deeply, calming his mind, forgiving what he had held on to, speaking gently to himself instead of with criticism. At first, nothing seemed to change, but after months, his body began to respond. The pain eased. The flare-ups became less frequent. His doctors were puzzled, but he knew his body was responding to a new signal. This is the quiet miracle of natural restoration. When you change the quality of your consciousness, you change the information your body receives, and your body, faithful servant that it is, begins to align. It does not happen overnight, and it does not mean you will never face illness again, but it means that healing becomes possible in ways you never imagined. I have experienced this myself. There was a season when stress hollowed me out from the inside. My chest was tight, my sleep restless, my body in constant fatigue. I thought I needed to fix my body directly. I tried routines, supplements, endless adjustments, But the real shift came when I learned to quiet the storm within. As I practiced coherence, as I allowed my awareness to rest in peace instead of turmoil, my body began to follow. Breath came easier, muscles loosened, energy returned. It was not a sudden recovery, it was a steady restoration. This does not mean we abandon medicine or ignore practical care. The body is wise, and there is value in every tool that helps it heal. But we must remember that no medicine can replace the power of a coherent inner life. Medicine can assist, but consciousness is the soil in which true healing grows. A healthy seed cannot thrive in toxic ground. Likewise, even the best treatments struggle when the mind is fractured and the heart is heavy with fear. But when coherence creates fertile ground, the body becomes responsive, resilient, alive. And this restoration is not only physical, it touches the way you feel in your own skin. When coherence lives in you, you no longer carry yourself like a battlefield. You walk lighter, you breathe deeper, you move with more ease. Others may notice before you do. They may say, "You look different," or "There's something peaceful about you." That peace is not cosmetic. It is the body reflecting the harmony of the soul. I think often of water. When water is turbulent, it churns and froths, clouded with sediment. But when it becomes still, the mud settles, the surface clears, and the water reflects the sky. Our bodies are the same. In the turbulence of incoherence, the signals of stress cloud everything. But when coherence brings stillness, the sediment falls, and what remains is clarity. The body reflects not fear, but peace, not fragmentation, but wholeness. And this is the essence of natural restoration. The body is not broken. It has always known how to heal. What it needed was not more struggle, but clear signals, signals of safety, signals of trust, signals of harmony. When those signals come, the body remembers what it knew all along: how to mend, how to restore, how to return to balance. So if you carry illness, if you wake each day with fatigue or pain, do not despair. Begin where you are. Begin with coherence. Speak gently to yourself. Breathe as though your cells are listening because they are. Offer them the frequency of peace, and they will respond. Offer them the rhythm of gratitude, and they will awaken. Offer them the signal of harmony, and they will slowly, steadily begin to restore. Healing, at its deepest level, is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who you really are, beneath the noise of stress and fear. It is about remembering that your body and your soul were never separate, and that both long to move in rhythm with each other. And when that rhythm is found, restoration is not forced. It simply happens. The doorway back to your true freedom. Escaping the observer trap is not about fleeing from life or hiding from the weight of the world. It is not an escape at all. It is a return to your natural state, where awareness is no longer locked in loops, but alive and fresh in each unfolding moment. It is remembering how to look at life as though you are seeing it for the first time. Every single time. So often, we think awakening is about adding more effort, more knowledge, more practices, more striving. But the truth is gentler. Awakening is about subtraction. It is the dissolving of the unnecessary, the softening of the old armor, the loosening of the stories that no longer serve. What is left is simple presence. And in that presence, life itself becomes radiant, even in its ordinariness. I have walked through enough darkness to know that presence is not a luxury. It is a necessity. When the mind loops endlessly, when fear and pain replay their familiar songs, life begins to feel like a cage. But when you return to presence, when you allow your awareness to breathe, unclenched, you find that the cage was never locked. The door was always open. And stepping through it is less about running toward freedom and more about remembering that you were free all along. And here is the beauty: when even one person remembers this, the entire field of humanity shifts. Consciousness is not isolated. It is shared, like ripples in a vast ocean. When you break free from repetition, your liberation is not just personal. It sends a vibration outward, touching others in ways you may never see. A single person's coherence can calm a room, soften a conflict, inspire a stranger. This is why your journey matters. It is not selfish. It is service. Think of it this way: every time you choose awareness instead of autopilot, you are weaving a new thread into the collective fabric. Every time you observe with gentleness instead of fear, you make it easier for others to do the same. Every time you return to coherence, the field of possibility expands for the whole of humanity. You become a bridge not only for yourself, but for the world. I cannot promise that the path will always feel easy. The loops of the old mind are strong, and the comfort of familiarity can be tempting. But I can promise you this: the moment you taste coherence, even for a breath, even for a heartbeat, you will know it is real. You will know it is worth returning to. Because coherence is not something you build through effort. It is who you are when you stop fragmenting yourself. It is like water settling after a storm. For a time, the waves may crash, the surface churned and wild. But if you wait, if you allow, the water clears. It reflects the sky again. Not because it forced itself into stillness, but because stillness is its natural state. In the same way, when you let go of the constant grasping, when you release the need to control every outcome, you settle into the truth of yourself, and from that place, the loops dissolve. In that moment, you stop being just a participant in reality. You become a source of it. You stop chasing experiences and start emanating them. You no longer ask, "How do I attract peace? How do I find love? How do I create abundance?" Instead, peace, love, and abundance begin to flow from you, because you have become the space in which they naturally exist. This is what it means to return, to stop living as though reality is outside of you, and to remember that reality is mirrored through you. To stop believing you are a prisoner of repetition, and to remember that you are the observer who holds the key. To stop waiting for freedom, and to realize that freedom is what you already are. When the noise quiets and the pieces of yourself sing in unison again. And so, if you hear anything from me today, let it be this: do not wait. Do not wait for the perfect moment, the perfect teacher, the perfect sign. The window is here. The invitation is now. The field is listening, always responding, always reflecting. All that is needed is your willingness to return to coherence, to allow yourself to stop scattering, and to rest in wholeness again. The world may still spin with chaos. Loops may still tug at your awareness. Pain may still knock at your door. But beneath it all, the truth remains untouched. You are not the loop. You are the awareness of it. And awareness, once awake, cannot be bound forever. So let yourself return. Let yourself rest. Let yourself be the space where creation itself begins. Because in that moment, you do not simply live in reality. You become reality. You become the source of the new, the witness and the creator, the bridge between the old loops and the unfolding future. And when you do, you will see what I have come to see: that the trap was never the end of your story. It was the doorway all along.